Welcome to episode 176 of the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. This is Melisa Liberman, and I'm so excited you're here today because today we're going to talk about an approach you can use for goal setting to actually break through a plateau you might have hit or to reach a goal that you might be falling short on, and ultimately to build a sustainable business through this goal setting approach. So I'm really excited to share this with you because it may sound very counterintuitive to what you think is the best way to tackle goals. So that's what we are up to here today. I also think this is really important because around the time we're recording this, it is the midpoint of the year. So if you're listening to this in the real time as the episodes are released, we've got a little over 5 months left in the year. And this is a really powerful tool you'll be able to use whether you're listening to this in the real time and it's toward the end of July, or you're coming back to this episode at some point in the future. It's a really helpful tool for you to be able to revisit your goals and make sure the goals are setting you up for success and you're not accidentally or inadvertently sabotaging what you're trying to accomplish through the way you're setting your goals. So that's what I really want to help you with, because sometimes what I find is that the way we set goals end up being a growth blocker for our businesses. And I definitely don't want the goal that you're setting to be the growth blocker for your business, and neither do you. You're setting a goal so that you can achieve the goal that you've set, so that you can grow the business and evolve it into closer to your vision. And so today, this tool will help you to get to the point where the goal is no longer being a blocker for what you're trying to accomplish, but instead an enabler to accelerate what it is you're trying to accomplish. So I'll tell you all about what I mean here in a moment, because this is a really surprising approach that you can leverage. And I want to help you to be aware of it so you can implement it in your business. In the meantime, before we do that, I thought I would just share a quick personal update. At the time we're recording this, it's right after 4th of July. And we did something as a family that we rarely do, which is instead of staying home for 4th of July, which we usually do, we went on a trip with my parents and my brother and sister-in-law to the southwestern part of Colorado near Durango. If you're familiar with Colorado, we went to the Four Corners and Mesa Verde and a day on the lake. It was amazing. Such a beautiful part of the country. I hope you had an amazing 4th of July if you're in the US, or just the beginning to summer if you're not in the US. I can't believe it's already halfway through the year. So that's what's happening over here. Now, as July starts, it is the major swim kind of season here. We have a lot of our swim meets that the kids have been swimming for all summer to culminate in what's called long course championships. So all three of them have qualified, which usually in the past, it's only been the two older ones. So I'm excited for the little guy to swim at his first state championships. So it should be fun. And they're both qualified for a relay together, the two younger ones. So that'll be fun to watch them also. Anyway, that's what's happening over here at Melisa Liberman Coaching. Now let's dive into today's topic, which is how do you set goals in a way that doesn't sabotage you? And I'll teach you this tool that I'm excited to share with you as we go through this episode. So the agenda today is just describing to you what I typically see in terms of goal setting for independent consultants and why that creates this saboteur effect. And then next, we'll talk about what I call the compound goal. That's what we're going to be focusing on today. The tool is called the compound goal approach. I'll talk with you about what it is, the benefits of it, what it looks like. And there's a little but Melissa in there in case you might be arguing with me as you're listening about why this approach would work for you. And then I'll give you a case study so you can see what this would look like in practice. And then I'll wrap up the episode to help you with some very specific immediate next steps. So that's what we're here today to accomplish. Listen, no matter what time of year this is, whether you're listening in the real time and you have 5-ish months of the year left, or you're listening at some point in the future and there's only a month or two left, or 12 months left, wherever you're at in the course of the year, don't give up. You shouldn't wait to set a goal until January. None of us should. Go set a goal now if you haven't set a goal already. Or if you did set a goal, revisit it. Maybe you're ahead of schedule. Let's reset the goal. Maybe you're behind schedule. I'll tell you how to handle that here in a moment. But don't skip over this goal setting process because it's incredibly important. It's incredibly important for the financial achievements that you want to hit. It's incredibly important for the type of lifestyle you want to enable. And it's really important to have something to be focusing in on for you as a business owner. So please, please, please don't skip this step of goal setting, no matter what time of year it is. Okay, so that was my little public service announcement. Now we'll move into the agenda for today. So, first, the companion resource that goes with this episode is the book, Grow Your. I have a copy of it over here on my desk. If you're looking at the video on YouTube, you can see the book. It's 300-ish pages and it will help you step by step to bring your independent consulting goals to reality. It's called Grow Your Consulting Business. You can download a copy of it at melisabook.com. But I thought today I would share with you the URL that takes you to a hidden toolkit that goes with the book. So if you haven't yet downloaded the book or the toolkit that goes with it, you can go to consultingbusinesstoolkit.com, download not only the book in PDF form, but also the toolkit that goes with the book. So if you happen to have a hard copy of the book, go download this toolkit that goes with the book, and it helps you put every single chapter into action. So you can find that at consultingbusinesstoolkit.com. Okay, so now that you've got that companion resource, now let's focus in on today's topic, which is using this tool that I call the compound goal setting tool to help you to overcome any situation where you've maybe hit a plateau or you're behind your goal, want to help you to really jostle it loose and help you start making progress again. So let's just take a step back and let me set the stage in terms of what the challenge typically is for independent consultants with respect to goal setting. The first situation is where you haven't set a goal. This is more common than you might imagine. Even, and I think I referenced this on the episode a few weeks ago, but it's even common for people who are getting on a call with me, an exploratory call to see if coaching is a good fit. They know for sure I tell them in advance, I'm going to ask you what your goal is. And they have the guide that helps them prepare for the call to make the most of the time for both of us. They know I'm going to ask them what their goal is. And still, yet they don't have one. They don't have a goal. And so that is the first most common scenario, is that you don't even have a goal. But let's say you do have a goal. You've set a goal and you're pushing really hard for it. And then you start realizing you're behind. And so you start realizing you're behind, and then you start to doubt the goal. And so then you start decreasing the amount of money that you set for the goal or the time frame you set for the goal. Or maybe you're even on track for the goal, but you start worrying about, I'm on track, but I don't think this is sustainable. And so then with that situation, you start to doubt the goal and you reset it or make it smaller, for example, for the second half of the year because you worked so hard to achieve it the first half of the year. Does any of this sound familiar to you? This is really common for independent consultants, especially because we're responsible for everything in our businesses. And so it can feel really challenging to hit goals. It can feel really challenging to sustain the results that we've created for ourselves. And that's what this tool that I'm going to share with you today, the compound goal tool, comes into play and will help you. Because for most of us, we think the fix to the problem I just described, whether you're behind on your goal or you are on track for your goal, but just really questioning whether you can keep up the pace, we think that the fix is to set more realistic goals, to change our goal or to set more realistic goals in the future. And so what I want to share with you today is that it's actually the opposite. It's actually the opposite. It's not about changing your goal or reducing your goal or making it quote unquote more practical or realistic. The way to help you get to the place where you have broken past a plateau, where you're back in momentum toward achieving your goals, your financial goals, and also to make them feel so much more sustainable so that you can maintain whatever that goal is moving forward and even grow upon it, is to set what I call a compound goal. It's called a compound goal. And that means that you are creating a set of goals that feel sustainable to you. And they take into consideration the financial component that you want to achieve with your business, the lifestyle or schedule component you want to achieve in your business, the emotional impact that you want to experience from your business, and anything else that's important to you. This is what I touched on a couple of different episodes ago about this 4-quadrant approach to goal setting. But I want to spend today's episode diving into this even further because it's so important to leverage this type of goal setting to help you to, again, it sounds really counterintuitive, but I'm going to show you here in a minute how this type of goal setting can actually make it easier to achieve your goals, not more difficult, and can help you to get to the point where you're not sabotaging yourself because you don't feel like it's, by achieving the goals, it's even a sustainable situation. So that's what the compound goal is. It has those 4 components: financial, lifestyle or schedule, fulfillment, and anything else that's important to you. So let me give you an example just to bring this type of goal to life. The example is, let's take the first quadrant, financial. Let's say we have a financial goal of 500K is one component of the compound goal. We have a lifestyle component, which is working 4 days a week, 10 months of the year. So that's taking 2 months off. So you're going to make 500K working 4 days a week, 10 months out of the year. And then it may be important from an emotional perspective to feel fulfilled or valued. So it may sound like I'm working on engagements that I rate 8 plus out of 10 on my fulfillment scale or my feeling values scale, whatever that emotional component is for you. And then the last quadrant of this compound goal might be something else that's important to you. For example, you also want to build one asset or product this year to set yourself up for future goals, having more reusable assets, for example. So let me restate this entire compound goal when we put it all together. The goal in this example is we're going to make 500K working 4 days a week, 10 months out of the year, working on engagements that you rate 8 out of 10 on your fulfillment scale as you're qualifying those potential clients, and you're building one asset or product for your business in the course of the year. That's what a compound goal sounds like. Now, how does this type of a compound goal, how could it possibly make it easier for you to create a sustainable business? How could a compound goal possibly make it easier for you to hit the goal in the first place? Because it sounds really counterintuitive, right? You might be saying to yourself, and this is the but Melissa section, but Melissa, doesn't setting goals this way make the goal even harder to achieve because you're putting more constraints on it? You're not just saying, I'm going to go make 500K come hell or high water. No, you're saying, I'm going to make 500K working 4 days a week, 10 months out of the year with clients who rate at least a 8 on a fulfillment scale and building out a product that's reusable this year. Your question might be, and it's a valid question, doesn't setting goals like that make it even harder to achieve because there's so many more qualifying factors, there's so many more constraints around the goal? And what I want to say to you today is that the opposite is actually true. It doesn't make it harder to achieve your goals. It actually can make it so much easier to achieve your goals when you set them in this compound way, because it helps you to overcome the blocker of not really wanting to achieve the goal because of the perceived costs of achieving that goal. So let me tell you what I mean by that. You might set a goal to make 500K and it sounds really good, but subconsciously, you are thinking about all the costs that might come with that. Let's say you're at 300K right now. So you want to add another 200K to your business. So you want to get to 500K. Whether you recognize this or not, in your mind, you most likely are concerned about what you're going to have to give up, the opportunity costs of pursuing that goal. You might assume, okay, I can make 500K, but I'm going to have to work so much more than I want to. I might have to work 5 days a week. I might have to work with clients that I don't want to work with because I've got to take whatever work comes across the table. And so you end up creating this sort of inner conflict with yourself that you logically want to create 500K, but subconsciously you really don't want that because you don't want what in your mind comes with that, the perceived costs of achieving that goal. And so the benefit of setting a compound goal is that we bring all of that to life. We bring all of that to light, I should say, where it's visible. And we say, look, I want to create this 500K, but I'm not going to compromise on how much I work either. I'm going to work for it, do this, working 4 days a week. 10 months out of the year. And I also don't want to compromise on the type of work that I take on or the type of clients that I agree to work with. Listen, you don't want to bring on clients who are miserable to work with. You probably left your job because of that reason. So you don't want to recreate that. So it's really important to just to put all of this on the table for yourself so that you can see that whatever you're in your mind are the perceived costs of reaching a certain component of a compound goal. Now we see all of the different aspects of the compound goal on the piece of paper and can start thinking about how can we achieve all of this without having to compromise one over the other. And you don't have to battle this sort of inner saboteur going on that says, consciously I want to create the 500K, but subconsciously I really don't want that because it makes my life so much more challenging. I don't have as much balance as I wanted, and I have to deal with difficult clients. If you've set up your goal in that way, of course you're going to sabotage yourself. Of course you're going to fall short of the goal because you, in your mind, believe that achieving the goal comes with costs that you don't want to experience. So that's why I'm recommending to you today to create this type of compound goal where you can see that you're going to create whatever's important to you in terms of these quadrants, the financial side of it, the impact side of it, the lifestyle side of it, and whatever else is important to you. The other thing that setting a compound goal does is helps you to set up your business to be sustainable from the outset of whatever the new revenue goal is that you're trying to achieve, that you're committed to achieving, I should say. So think about this because a lot of us set goals in this way. I do it too sometimes myself. I feel like I want to strive to hit a new revenue goal. Let's say double your revenue, for example. Let's say you're at 250 and you want to hit 500. So in your mind, it may be very common for you to say, okay, I'm going to do everything I can that's humanly possible to hit the 500K. And then after I've hit the 500K, then I'll start refining my business and my approach and my systems and my processes to make them more sustainable. But you've created, in approaching your goal that way, if you are, you've created this dynamic where you have on paper something you want, but under the cover, those perceived costs are really high. So why not set up your business to be sustainable from the beginning? Whether you're brand new to consulting or whether you're pushing yourself to reach a new goal, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's the same revenue amount, but with a different schedule. Or maybe it's the same revenue amount with a completely different type of service or ideal client that you're serving. Do it from the outset where you're approaching it from this compound goal perspective rather than creating something that then you have to fix later or optimize later or adjust later or make more sustainable later. Do it from the beginning. Figure out how are you going to shift your business model or double your revenue from a compound goal perspective without making those other sacrifices that make it miserable to get there. And then you end up sabotaging yourself because of that. The other thing that's really important outcome of the compound goal approach is that it unlocks a new way of thinking for you. You're not going to be able to think the same way that you're thinking right now. You're not going to be able to take action the same way that you're taking right now. You're not going to be able to think about yourself the same way you're thinking about yourself right now or perceiving yourself or believing in the self identity that you have right now to achieve the type of goal that we're talking about. If you have any type of goal that extends you beyond where you're at right now, and I would have to guess that you do, otherwise you probably wouldn't be listening to this episode, What got you here isn't going to get you there. You've heard that me say that so many times, and you've just heard that in general so many times. What got you here is not going to get you there. So the benefit of this type of compound goal approach helps you to unlock a new level of thinking, a new level of thinking about yourself as a business owner, a new level of thinking about yourself as a salesperson and marketer, a new way of thinking about yourself as someone who delivers high impact services to your clients, a new way of thinking about your clients and the way they think about you and perceive you and the value that you deliver to them, a new way of thinking about the services themselves that you offer and the pricing that goes with that. That's what this type of compound goal setting will help you to unlock, a new way of thinking, which will then make it so much easier for you to hit those goals that you've set. The financial level of emotional impact, the lifestyle, and whatever else is important to you. That's why this type of compound goal setting approach can be really valuable to you, because it not only helps you to avoid those saboteurs, but it also helps you to think about your goals in a completely different way than you might have been thinking if you're just working on like little incremental changes for yourself in your business. Okay, so hopefully I've convinced you of the importance of this type of compound goal setting approach. I want to bring this to life for you with a case study. So I'm going to walk you through a case study. It's a real person. I'll just use a name that is not that person's name just for purposes of anonymity. But what you'll hear here is a very specific approach to leveraging and implementing this compound goal approach in your business so that you can achieve the business goals that you want to achieve in a sustainable way, and quite frankly, above and beyond what you might have even imagined as possible for yourself. So let's start with before in this case study. The before, we'll call him James, who's a consultant, an independent consultant like you. He set a financial goal for the year for 12-month period of 375K, which breaks down to about 94,000 per quarter. So again, the 375K goal, 94-ish K per quarter. So he went through the first half of the year. The first half of the year, he missed the number by the first quarter of this 12-month period. He missed it by about 25,000. And then in Q2, he missed it by 40,000. So he felt like he was going backward almost. And in some ways he was, right? He had missed the goal by 25K in the first quarter. And then in the second quarter, he missed it by about 40K. And so by the third quarter of the year, this was last year, by the third quarter of the year, he knew something had to change. He knew something had to change. And so he started contemplating what would that be? Because he was already 65K off of a 375K goal. And so when he started thinking about what he was going to do about this, the fact that he was behind his goal, he started contemplating different approaches, which you might have contemplated as well in situations where you've been behind on your goal. I know for sure I've contemplated and implemented these strategies, right? Mostly around reducing the goal. Oh, I realize now, the thought process for James, and it might be for you too. Oh, I'm thinking that goal was too high. I should never have set it. I should just make it more realistic. So that was what James was thinking as Q3 was starting. I better just reduce the goal because that 375 was not realistic. To be honest, was starting to think about going back to corporate. This is really thinking to himself and sharing with me, thinking how hard this is to sustain a consulting business, to reach the goals, to exceed his corporate income, all of those things. He's really started to question the whole thing. And so as he and I were meeting, what I encouraged him to do is to put in place this type of compound goal. And it sounded really counterintuitive. When I first told him, look, my recommendation is that you don't change your goal. My recommendation is that when you start thinking about going back to corporate, you remind yourself, we're not doing that today. We're not contemplating that today. And you double down on the goal that you set. And not only do you do that, not only do you double down on the 375, but you also add in more to the goal to make it a compound goal. That's what I said to him. So if my math is right, he had about 252K left at this point in the year, with 6 months to complete it. So, of course, he was questioning whether that was even possible. But not only did I say, let's keep with the 375, let's add more to the goal. Let's put in place that you want to commit to working 4 days a week. I know you've been talking about that for a long time and you haven't been able to get there. Let's commit to it now. Let's also commit to you taking a vacation 1 week a quarter. And let's also commit to you working only with clients that you want to work with that get an 8 or greater rating on the fulfillment scale when you're qualifying them in a sales process. So that's what James's situation looked like. He was behind on his goal. He was worried he wasn't going to hit it. And the answer wasn't, let's reduce the goal and feel better. The answer was actually, let's recommit to the goal and add in more constraints in the sense of a compound goal. So, of course, he was not exactly super excited about this, to be, if he was honest with me, which he was. He was afraid. He was afraid of this, but he was also willing to try it. He was willing to try it, even though it sounded like probably not the most realistic or reasonable plan. So from there, he went forward with this compound goal approach and started implementing new systems in his business. We tightened up his offers. We tightened up his ideal client. We tightened up his lead generation process. We tightened up his sales process and made his qualification process even more rigid than it was before, which again, all sound counterintuitive. But at the end of the day, what he was able to accomplish in that second half of the year was that he ended up exceeding his goal. Instead of 375, he hit 400K. And he took off more time than he ever had before in his business. 1 day a week. So he was only working 4 days a week, including working on his business and working in his business. He was taking off 1 week a quarter. And he was feeling a lot more fulfilled and valued with the client work that he was taking on versus just taking on anything that came across his desk and justifying it to himself that he didn't want to leave money on the table. And so you might be asking, how did that work? How did that happen? I don't understand how by making the goal compound, then he was able to achieve these types of results, because it sounds like we made the goal more challenging to accomplish rather than more simple to accomplish. We set the bar higher, right? We said we're going to keep the 375 and we're going to put even more constraints around how to hit the 375. So why on earth would that work? Seems like that's the opposite direction of what you would want to take, especially if you're behind on a goal. And what I'll share with you is the reason why this worked is because he had to think about himself differently. He had to think about his business differently. He had to think about what he was offering differently. He had to think about his ideal client differently. And as a result, he became the business owner who figured out how to implement this new business model, a 400K business model, a 400K business model where you're working 4 days a week and having a week or two off each quarter. He realized that he pushed himself to the point where there was no longer any tweaking or fine tuning he could do to hit the goals that he wanted. He had to start thinking about things differently. So he wasn't eking out his results to hit his goals anymore. The 350, the 375, getting close enough to 375 to say that it counts. Because he committed to this new compound goal, he had to make shifts in his business that he wouldn't have otherwise. And that basically broke through the plateau that he kept hitting and, quite frankly, kept regressing against. And so as a result, he was thinking differently, acting differently, carrying himself differently, positioning himself differently. And through all of this, he shifted his business model into one that was much more lucrative and sustainable. And he also raised his set point. And by that, I mean, he raised the way that the results that he was creating, 40K per month, just became kind of the new normal for him. So that's what this type of compound goal setting can help you to achieve, can look like for you in your business. Think about James's example and how that might apply to you and what you want to be accomplishing in your business. in the next 6 months or 12 months or quarter, whatever it looks like for you in terms of a goal setting horizon. So as we bring this episode to a close, I want to encourage you to put this into action. As you know, every episode, I encourage you to go take action, put the concept into play for you and your business. And you'll do that with 2 steps. Number 1, establish your own version of compound goals, whatever that looks like for you. I gave you an example, a case study here today. Go put that into action. And you can download the book and the toolkit that goes with the book to help you with your goal setting and vision setting in your business. We'll put the link in the show notes. I believe it's consultingbusinesstoolkit.com. And then also reach out to see if working with me as your coach will help you to put these types of tools in place in your business so that you can make more money and ultimately do it in a much more sustainable way. So you can find the details of that to book a call at consultmelisa.com. It's consultmelisa, Melisa.com. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care. Thanks for joining me this week on the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. If you liked today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, click subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app so other independent consultants can find and benefit too. And finally, to put the ideas from today's episode into action, head over to melisaliberman.com for the show notes and more resources to help you grow your consulting practice from your first few projects into a full-fledged business. See you next week.